Hi guys, Jeremy Thomas here, and this is John Muir. He is a consulting agronomist and he's focusing on the hemp industry development. Hemp is a very versatile product, as we know, most of you do, those that have been watching this channel and those that know John Muir. We've got a bunch of different samples here. We're going to show you through a couple of the different items and John will talk you through it. He's going to tell us a little bit about how he got into agronomy in general, focusing on hemp, and just talk a little bit about all the different sustainability elements that Element ties in, how it's good for farmers here in Australia, all around the world, and how it's good in fact as a product for the world in general, where it captures carbon and all the different uses all along the supply chain, how it benefits all those different parties all the way along the supply chain. So without further ado, I'll hand over to John.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it. So, I've had the opportunity to be here with Jeremy, and we're going to just run through some of the products that I carry around with me in my show and tell bag. So, John Muir, I'm an agronomist. That's a dirt doctor. I'm a Sydney boy, raised and bred in Sydney where we are today, but I went to Hawkesbury Agricultural College down the road. I've had 45 years as an agronomist, but the last 15 years has been focused on hemp. One of the reasons I think that is because I've traveled the world and worked overseas in some of the developing countries, and I see that it's so important to have food and shelter as the basic needs of life. And hemp can do food, it's a superfood. Hemp can do building, it's a unique biomass crop. We all know the ropes, but my house is made out of hemp as well. So, this is a little journey we're going to go on and say what we can do with hemp.
So we've heard a little bit about your background, John. Tell us a little bit more about how you got to specialise in hemp.
So as I suggested, I'd done 30 odd years of agriculture in Australia, in the Riverina, cut my teeth there, saw a lot of agriculture in Australia, and then had the fortune of working overseas. And when you go overseas, it's a real reality check on your basic needs of food and fibre and shelter. So coming back to Australia, in Maleny on the Sunshine Coast, I had the opportunity to work with Phil Warner, who was the godfather and the father of the hemp industry in Australia, and I thank him for that. And as a result, we were able to go down, he offered me a job to come down and help set up the industry in the Hunter Valley, which is lucerne, irrigation, and grows well. Crops. Hemp just happened to fit into that as well, and we had access to sewage waste and biosolids, and the crops grew absolutely incredible. 6-7 meters in 6 months. And we set up the first mill, hemp processing biomass mill in Australia, prior to food becoming legal to eat. So this is in 2010, so 15 years ago, and we started the first mill and we contracted farmers and it grew, and there was no problem at all with the biomass. We also grew food crops in Tasmania, where the European varieties were more suited to that colder environment. That's how I got into hemp.
So help us understand Hempcrete a little bit better and why it's such a great building product.
Thanks, Jeremy. So my house is made out of Hempcrete blocks. So 70% of the stem of a hemp plant is the hurd. The other 20% is the fibre, the rope, the canvas sails. So there's 70% of the stem is basically hurd. And what can we use that for? Well, Hempcrete with a bit of lime added to the hemp makes a beautiful insulation, termite-proof, fire-proof, best insulation in the world. I have it in my house. I do not have heating. I do not have air conditioning. So not only is it in the build that it's clean and green and carbon free and a sink, but it saves in energy as well, and it's recyclable. So, and it's termite resistant, except, I hate to say, if you come across a termite called destructor in Northern Territory. They eat tractor tires, so be warned, in the Northern Territory, there is a species. So it just ticks all the boxes. So there's my hemp blocks into a normal house. The price is the same or a little bit more expensive if you're building a house. So with all those pluses, plus the carbon, plus all the other benefits of a green material rather than petroleum or wood being cut down, hemp is a unique biomass crop.
A number of different types of hemp, John. Can you talk us through the different types and the different products there can be used to make?
Certainly can, Jeremy. It's a unique plant. It is not only, I won't mention the M word or the other uses for cannabis, but the low THC hemp that we are talking about for food and fibre, thousands of different varieties, thousands of different types. The main difference is a grain crop is short for grain without much stubble. So you basically just harvest the superfood grain, which has 28% protein or more and 28% oil or more. That's even better than a legume. So it is a superfood, right? So that's the grain. We also have dual purpose crops that can be tall and we can harvest the grain and the stubble. That's a dual purpose crop. And lastly, we have a biomass only crop that in 4 to 5 months is 4 to 5 meters tall and is a biomass only crop. So they're the three types of crops. The fibre is 20% of the stem. You need to process that. Once you harvest and bale the crop of the stem or the stubble, you have to separate the fibre from the hurd. The hurd is the middle wood chip. Inside the middle stem, that's 70% of the stem is hurd. And that makes your, mixed with lime, your hempcrete house or hempcrete panels. We're now doing tilt panels. We're now doing panels and thin panels on walls, on floors and ceilings. There are so many different products that we can make with this. You know, where do you start? There's a thin wall. So as against a thick wall up to 200 to 300 millimeters, you can do the thin wall, which is also fireproof on the outside with a layer. And uniquely, here is a laminate. No glues, no added extra material other than the green resins in the hemp stem itself at harvest, squashed, heated, pressed, laminates. Absolutely incredible. So that is that. There's other flooring, paneling with a mixture of fibres and glues and hurd. You've seen the long fibres. There's some with both, a bit of hurd. That's what the processing does, separate the fibre from the hurd. That's the wood chip. It's all about the quality of separating. That's what the decortication does. And here's some of the final products. Textile, my shirt, my t-shirt is made from pure hemp. It's the strongest natural fibre in the world, bar none. That's why we made ropes. And canvas is cannabis sales. Canvas comes from cannabis. So that's why there is all these different. This is a weed matting that is biodegradable. I've seen it used for hydro mulching on the side of the roads and on mine rehabilitation sites. There are so many different products. I won't talk about the CBD much. That is also in the buds for my tennis elbow for pain. That's not a subject I'm expert on, but all the soaps and salves and oils, and you'll be surprised. And last, look at this one. What is that? That is a H-iron I-beam. And that can handle 4 tons. It's light, it's lighter than aluminium, lighter than steel, lighter than wood, and it carries weight. Imagine having a complete hemp home with the hemp block and the beam in the roof or in the walls. Or lastly, the piece de resistance. There are Chinese who've been building flak jackets, flak-proof helmets. That's a bulletproof sample. And I know I was there when it happened.
So there's been a lot of interest with hemp wood and hemp flooring, John. Tell us what you know about hemp wood and how it's progressing along today in the industry.
I haven't got it in my house, unfortunately, as yet, but here's a sample that is available. America is running with the hemp wood. This is like the yellow tongue, solid, waterproof. You can laminate it, do what you like with it, polish it, and it's strong. So walls, floors, ceilings. Where's it going to finish? I think this stuff is going to basically take over anything: plastic, wood, timber, steel, iron, aluminium. It's look out, the competition's coming down the road, and it's exciting. And there's a lot of work going on to see where it can replace or supplement or work together.
Well, let's move on to the sustainability and environmental impact of hemp.
So hemp has been claimed to solve the world on many problems. And myself being a scientist, I don't just go with the flow. We need that scientific information and knowledge. And because it's been an orphan crop that hasn't been looked at for 50 years in terms of breeding or development, it's left behind. So we haven't got a lot of knowledge and information about it other than some other plants that are out the back. So with hemp and industrial hemp, we really need to put some numbers on the claims of its sustainability. So we know it doesn't use a lot of water, but it does need water, I assure you, to grow these massive crops that we talk about. We know it likes fertilizer. It does need fertilizer to grow those massive crops. So we just need to really find out what the science is behind these crops. We know that it adds biology to the soil, we know it adds carbon, we know it's good for the environment, we know it's a good rotation crop, disease control. We know that it's compared to petroleum and all these other aluminium or metals or whatever items and raw materials we're pulling out of the earth. Hemp and timber, we know that hemp is definitely advantage and above the pack. There is one little thing on the negative side I want to hide, because I've got a cough and there's a few in the industry. We just got to be really careful of this dust. It's one of the reasons hemp is what it is, unique. It's high silica, and if you know anything about silica, that's the stone and the asbestos type cough or throat or our lung problem. Now, here's a hemp mask, in fact, to prevent that. So, like all things, let's be open and transparent and say, yes, you can grow this stuff well and yields well. We'll talk about yields later on. But in terms of occupational health and safety, just please be aware of the need to have good respiratory methods to reduce any potential problem.
So let's talk about economics here. What are some of the positive and negative factors around hemp?
Thanks, Jeremy. So I'd like to refer to this document that's been put out for free. It's on the website of AgriFutures, who I happen to be consulting to for all the national trials in every state. So there's a good grower's guide of how to grow hemp and a budget. So it's mainly for irrigation, and that's where we've stuck with at the moment, but we are going to push it into the dryland, and I'll talk about that later. But for the economics, we've just had 1,000 hectares grown in the Riverina, and the growers for biomass made more money than cotton, and you can quote me. So people are interested in growing this crop. So at the yields, we haven't even started with the breeding and getting this crop going. We've only been at it, for 5-10 years. So imagine what the yields, gains, and the genetics are going to do in the next 10 years. We'll be able to double yields. And if we're making money now, imagine what we can make in the future. So not only is it a good crop to grow for all the other reasons of ESG and carbon, but economics, bottom line, farmers, income versus costs, they're going to make money out of this crop, whether it's grain, whether it's biomass, whether it's organic. This is a good crop to grow in rotation with your normal farming system in the right place. There are some places it doesn't like waterlogging, it doesn't like acid soils, and it doesn't like salinity. So there are some limits to hemp. It doesn't grow everywhere, and we just got to get that right.
And so that's the farmer's aspect. What about all the way down the supply chain to the end user? You're wearing a hemp shirt today, and there's the hemp building products. Are there any benefits along the supply chain from shipping to builders and all that sort of stuff?
So hemp, do we want hemp to be another crop like wool and cotton that is harvested, baled, or put in a container, or put in a ship like iron ore and coal and shipped away? What if we value added it all here? Processed the hemp, made the blocks, made the fibres, the textiles. That is an industry waiting to happen in Australia, rather than just export our minerals and our primary products. Imagine if we could develop a primary and secondary and tertiary industry on hemp, of fibre and food. It would be a whole new industry for Australia to benefit from along the whole supply chain.
So I had the benefit of staying in Kirsty's Culburra Hemp House a few weeks ago. I've also stayed in the Wingham Hemp House. I've made a few videos about those. You probably check them out on the YouTube. But John also has mentioned his Hempcrete house as well. He's going to talk to us a little bit about the history of hemp from way back from the Romans, you say?
So they're finding a lot of Egyptian tombs are full of hemp seed and hemp products, and even in China. So there are buildings and aqueducts from the Roman times still standing today from that basic lime and herd mix. Russia, this product's been around for 2,000 years. As I said earlier, here's your ropes, there's the fibre for the ropes. What was the Crimean War about, Jeremy? 200 years, not this Ukraine war. The Crimean War was about who could get Ukraine's hemp crop for their sailing boats. So what did you have to do in America when the Poms took over America? They had to grow hemp for their sailing boats. Whoever had the sailing boats was the king of the world. Who was the king of the world? England. They won the Crimean War. They took over America. They had places to grow hemp. So that history is there. And then you go more recently. Then there was the ban, after the Second World War. So there's been no development, no breeding, no industry other than China. China has gone leaps and bounds in the technology in cannabis, food and fibre. So we're on catch up. And because of that, it means the leaps and the bounds are going to be big and the opportunities are going to be huge. So I'm not spinning this one. We're starting at a low base at the moment, so it can only get better.
So as the regulation around hemp is changing, what are some of the other things that we're discovering about hemp?
That's a good question, Jeremy, and that makes agronomists like me excited because there's always something unique developing on the road. So something we found, I've just had a regenerative ag hemp workshop at Casino at Stuart Larson's, and he's had the Lismore Uni out there, Southern Cross, and they have been biochar making from hemp. So biochar is a fertilizer of the soil. It's somewhere where the bugs procreate and blossom and breed. So it's not a fertilizer as such, but it allows the biology in the soil. So they've been spreading biochar. But he then fed the biochar to his cows. And guess what? He got a 85% reduction in methane in the cows and an 8% increase in weight gain. And then where does it end up? The biochar ends up in the soil when it's pooped out. So triple whammy benefits from biochar from hemp. So a waste product, some of the leftovers, that's a product with biochar in it. So as a feed supplement, here is another potential greenhouse gas use for waste or leftover biochar that you turn, leftover hemp material that you can turn into biochar.
Here, I better check in. Are you enjoying this info on hemp and sustainability? If so, please show your support directly on YouTube by hitting that like button and subscribing to this channel. Do also drop a positive, encouraging comment below, a question about this video, or share your thoughts and ideas on how hemp can help us in our journey towards a more sustainable world.
So agronomy is a science. Give us a little bit of advice for some aspiring agronomists out there.
Thanks, Jeremy. So I'm a Sydney, Manly beach surfer sailor, and I headed to Hawkesbury Ag College, an hour west, and did ag. I was on the academic board and I managed their farm because they wanted someone to think differently outside the square, not just the country boy. They wanted someone who could think differently or not normal. So I'm not normal to be doing ag. So anyone can do ag. It's food, it's nutrition, it's your health. The biggest thing they're finding out now about agriculture is that the crops we're growing, the nutrition is declining. So that is a huge critical problem for the world. We might be able to fill your tummy, but you might not have enough nutrition in it to feed your mind and your needs of your body. So I'm going to Canberra next week to be at a conference in Parliament House about global food security. It's a huge issue. And if anyone wants to help that issue, we need young agronomists. And it's not just, hard work anymore and kicking clods. It's drones, it's satellites, it's soil biology. I was never taught soil biology. I was never taught about microbes and this sort of thing. It's a whole new world out there, and I wish I was 22 again. And might I add, because we're talking hempcrete and construction, we need engineers that need to understand this. Architects, we need carpenters and chippies to understand hemp. There's 300 houses out there. I want 3 million. Let's do this. We can do this together. And that's why I'm not just an agronomist anymore, it's a whole industry. You need the whole supply chain to be sorted out. The growing, the processing, the products, and then the training of all those people to make this industry work. So it's exciting.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honour chatting to you today, John. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge with me and indeed the wider community here that's watching us on YouTube and around the world. We're both working hard to promote the hemp industry, but what you're doing out in the field is amazing, and good luck on your journeys.
Yep, it's all about the clients. I'm just trying to help people that want to do the same thing. So if we can all work together and share and collaborate and coordinate, I really think that would be great.
Awesome, let's do it.
Thanks, mate. Let's do it.
See you guys.